In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
And so the quest goes on, and the quest, as it may be, ends in attainment. We know not where and when, so long as we can conceive of our separate existence. The quest goes on, and attainment continued henceforth. And ever shall the study of the ways which have been followed by those who have passed in front be a help in our own path. It is it is of all things beautiful and perfect, holy and high of all to be conscious of the path, which does in fine lead thither where we go, namely the goal which is in God, taking nothing with us which does not belong to ourselves, leaving nothing behind us that is of our real selves. We shall find in the great attainment that the companions of our toils are with us, and the place is the Valley of Peace. It's Arthur Edward Waite, A.E. Waite, The Secret Tradition.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Please note the explicit content indicator. This means that I use adult language. I do not speak in a humorless, public radio hushed monotone. I am excited and enthusiastic about the information that I present and the topics I discuss. You will hear ice rattle in my glass throughout the show. On the show, I joke about bodily functions, sex acts, religion, and politics. The topics may seem random or scattered through the back catalog. A list of show topics in chronological order is provided on the featured topic link at Advertise.com. If any of these issues might trigger you, this might not be the podcast for you, and I wish you good luck finding a show more to your liking. It's that time again, Abramancers. The music is low, the party is over, the fire is dying down, and all the ordinary people passed out long ago. Now we are the only ones left. Hey everybody, I'm John. I'm on the fence about this new adjustment to the intro music. I feel like it's too reactionary. Like, I get hammered with a bunch of bad reviews. So I'm like, fine, well, fuck you. I'll just tell you all the shit you're going to hate about it beforehand. But it feels like it's like too long. It kind of drags. I try to make it cool with the glitches and everything. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. Anyhow, we're continuing our Freemasonic prophecy series here. So the featured book is The Builders by Joseph Fort Newton, 1914. And before I go on, I'd like to invite everyone to raise their, I raised it right in the microphone stand, raise your vessel of the art, and thank you to my Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters. Got a new Jussie joined up to Subscribe Star. So here's to you, Jussie. May we never go to hell, but always be on our way. Traded a few emails with Jussie. He's a very interesting character. Here's to you. Oh, whoever made this drink messed up. It's way too strong. It's terrifyingly strong. And it's later in the evening than I'm used to being recorded. My wife gave me my Christmas present this evening. You know, if you know what I mean. So let's jump into this. The drama of faith. Man does not live by bread alone. He lives by faith, hope, and love. And the first of these was faith. Nothing in the human story is more striking than the persistent, passionate, profound protest of man against death. Even in the earliest times, we see him daring to stand erect at the gates of the grave, disputing its verdict, refusing to let it have the last word, and making an argument on behalf of his soul. For Emerson, as for Addison, the fact alone was proof enough of immortality, as revealing a universal intuition of eternal life. Others may not be so easily convinced, but no man who has the heart of a man can fail to be impressed by the ancient heroic faith of his race. Nowhere has the faith ever been more vivid or victorious than among the old Egyptians. In the ancient Book of the Dead, which is indeed a book of resurrection, occur the words, quote, "The soul to heaven, the body to earth," unquote. I would add, as above, so below. And back to the book. And the first faith is our faith today. Our King Unas, who lived in the third millennium, it is written, "Behold, thou hast gone as one dead, but as one living, nor has one in our day set forth the faith with more simple eloquence than the hymn to Osiris, the papyrus of Hunefer." So in the pyramid texts, the dead are spoken of as those who ascend, the imperishable ones who shine as stars, and the gods are evoked to witness the death of the king, adorning as a soul, and is deep prophecy, albeit touched with poignant pathos, in this broken exclamations written on the temple walls, "Thou diest not. Have ye said that he would die? He diest not. The King Pepi lives forever. Live. Thou shalt not die. He has escaped the day of death. Thou livest. Thou livest, and raise thee up. Thou diest not. Stand up and raise thee up. Thou perish not eternally. Thou diest not." Nevertheless, nor poetry, nor chant, nor solemn ritual could make death other than death. At the pyramid text, while refusing to utter the fatal words, give wistful reminiscence of the blessed age before death came forth. However high the faith of man, the masterful negation and collapse of the body was a fact. And it was to keep that daring faith alive and aglow that the mysteries were instituted. Beginning, it may be an incantation. They rose to heights of influence and beauty. giving dramatic portrayals to the unconquerable faith of man, watching the sun rise from the tomb of night and the spring return in glory. After the death of winter, man reasoned from analogy, justifying a faith that held him as truly as he held it, that the race sinking into graves would rise triumphant over death. This reminds me of the Judgment card. There are many variations of this theme as the drama of faith evolved and as it passed from land to land, but the motif was ever the same. And there were derived directly or indirectly from the old Osirian passion plays in Egypt against the background of the ancient solar religion. Osiris made his advent of the Lord of the Nile and fecund spirit of vegetable life, son of, he calls it Nut, but we know it as Nuit, the sky goddess, and Geb, the god of the earth. And nothing in the story of the Nile dwellers is more appealing than his conquest of the hearts of the people against all odds. Howbeit, the history need not detain us here, except to say that by the time his passion had become the drama of national faith, it had been bathed in all the tender hues of human life. There's somewhat of its solar radiance still lingered in it, enough to say of all the gods called into being by the hopes and the fears of men who dwelt in times of yore on the banks of the Nile, Osiris was the most beloved. Osiris, the benign father, Isis, his sorrowful and faithful wife, and Horus, whose final piety and heroism shine like diamonds in a heap of stones. About this trinity were woven the ideals of the Egyptian faith and family life. Hear now the story of the oldest drama of the race, which for more than 3,000 years held captive the hearts of men. Osiris was a ruler of eternity, but by reason of his visible shape seemed nearly akin to man. Revealing a divine humanity, his success was chiefly due, however, to the gracious speech of Isis, his sister wife, whose charm men could neither reckon nor resist. Together they labor for the good of man, teaching him to discern the plants fit for food, themselves pressing the grapes and drinking the first cup of wine. They made known the veins of metal running through the earth, of which man was ignorant. They taught him to make weapons. They initiated man into an intellectual and moral life, taught him the ethics and religion, and how to read the starry sky, song and dance and rhythm of music. Above all, they evoked in men a sense of immortality, of a destiny beyond the tomb. Nevertheless, they had enemies at once stupid and cunning, keen-witted but short-sighted, the dark force of evil which still weaves the fringe of crime on the borders of human life. Borders, that's interesting. Side by side with Osiris lived the impious Set, or Typhon, as evil ever haunts the good. While Osiris was absent, Typhon, whose name means serpent, filled with envy and malice, and sought to usurp his throne. but his plot was frustrated by Isis, whereupon he resolved to kill Osiris. This he did, having invited him to a feast, persuading him to enter a chest offering as if in jest to present the richly carved chest to any one of his guests, who, lying down inside it, he was found. It was the same size. When Osiris got in, he stretched himself out, and the conspirators closed the chest and flung it to the Nile. Thus far, the gods not known death. They had grown old, with white hair and trembling limbs, but the old age had not led to death. As soon as Isis heard of this infernal treachery, she cut her hair, clad herself in the garb of mourning, and ran hither and yon, a prey to the most cruel anguish, seeking the body. Weeping and distracted, she never tarried, never tired in her sorrowful quest. She said, "Where, oh, where is the body of my husband?" Meanwhile, the waters carried the chest out to sea as far as Byblos in Syria, the town of Adonis, where it lodged against the shrub of Erica or Tamazeric, like they carry a tree, owning to the various or the virtue of the body, the shrub, and its touch shot up into the tree, growing around it and protecting it until the king of that country cut the tree, which hid the chest in its bosom, and made from it a column of his palace. At last, Isis, led by a vision, came to Byblos and made herself known and asked for the column. Hence the picture of her weeping over a broken column torn from that palace, while Horus, god of time, stands behind her, pouring an ambrosia in her hair. And she took the body back to Egypt, to the city of Bauto. But Typhon, hunting by moonlight, found the chest, and having recognized the body of Osiris, mangled it and scattered it beyond recognition. Isis, embodiment of the old world sorrow, for the time continued her pathetic quest, gathering piece by piece the body of her dismembered husband and giving him a decent interment. Such was the life and death of Osiris, but his career pictured the cycle of nature. It could not, of course, end here. Horus fought with Typhon, losing an eye in battle, and finally overthrew him and took him prisoner. There are several versions of his fate, but he seems to have been tried, sentenced, and executed, cut into 3 pieces. The pyramid texts relate. Well, that's interesting. Therefore, the faithful son went in solemn procession to give the grave of his father. He opened it. He called upon Osiris to rise. He says, "Stand up. Thou shalt not end, and thou shalt not perish." But death was deaf. Here, the pyramid text recite the mortuary ritual with its hymns and its chants, but in vain. At length, Osiris awakens, weeble and weary and feeble, and by the aid of the strong grip of the lion god, he gains control of his body, and he's lifted from death to life. Therefore, by any of his victory Over death, Osiris becomes the Lord of Death, and his scepter is the Ankh cross, and his throne is a square. Such, in brief, was the ancient allegory of eternal life, upon which there are many elaborations of the drama unfolded, but always under whatever variations of the local color of the national assent or emphasis. Its central theme remained the same, often perverted and abused. It was everywhere a dramatic expression of the great human aspiration for triumph. Oh, I see it. Over death in union with God, and belief in the ultimate victory over good, over evil. Not otherwise would this drama have held the hearts of men through long ages and won the eulogisms of the most enlightened men of antiquity: Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Euripides, Plutarch, Pindar, Isocrates, Marcus Aurelius. Writing to his wife after the loss of their little girl, Plutarch commends to her the hope set for this mystic rites and the symbol of the drama, as elsewhere he testifies it kept him as far from superstition as from atheism, and applied him to the approach, the truth. From deeper minds, this drama had a double meaning, teaching not only the immortality of death, but the awakening of man upon the earth from animalism, a life of purity, justice, and honor, and how nobly this practical aspect was taught, and with what fineness of spiritual insight might be seen in the secret sermon on the mountain in the hermetical lore of Greece. What may I say, my son? I can tell thee this: whatever I see within myself, the simple vision brought to birth out of God's mercy, I have passed through myself into a body that I can never die. Then I am not what I was before. They who was thus born are children of a divine race. And this race, my son, is never taught, but when he willeth it, its memory will be restored by God. It is the way of birth in God. Withdraw thyself, and it will come to pass. Isis herself had said to have established the first temple of the mysteries, the oldest being those practiced at Memphis, not in Tennessee. Of these, there were two orders: the lesser, to which there were many eligible, and which consisted of dialogue and ritual and certain signs and tokens and grips and passwords, and the greater, reserved for the few who approved themselves worthy of being entrusted with the highest secrets of science, philosophy, and religion. For these, the candidates had to undergo a trial, a purification, danger, and austere asceticism, and at last regeneration through a dramatic depth. If you go back and you listen to all my motherfucking episodes about Freemasonry, you will hear me talk about this. A ritual of dramatic death. It's all about reminding you that, yo, bro, someday you're gonna fucking die. and it's going to be sooner rather than later. And what kind of man do you want to be? Literally, that's what Freemasonry teaches you. That 1 or 2 fucking sentences. You're going to die. What kind of man you want to be? You want to be a shitty motherfucker? Or you want to be someone who speaks the truth? Regeneration through dramatic death amid rejoicing. Such as endured the ordeal with valor, were then taught orally and by symbol the highest wisdom to which man had attained, including geometry, astronomy, the fine arts, the law of nature, as well as the truths of faith. Awful oaths of secrecy were exacted, and Plutarch describes a man kneeling, his hands bound, a cord around his body, and a knife at his throat, death being the penalty of violating the obligation. Even then, Pythagoras had to wait almost 20 years to learn the hidden wisdom of Egypt. So cautious were they of candidates, especially of foreigners. But he made noble use of it. Later, he founded a secret order of his own at Cretonia in Greece, in which, among other things, he taught geometry using numbers as symbols of spiritual truth. From Egypt, so look, what they're just talking about, if you've ever seen like a snuck out like thing or like a documentary on Freemasonry, this is exactly what they're talking about. Blindfolded man, his fucking clothes are all disheveled, he's got a tow rope around his neck and a knife to his throat. And they're like, if you can't keep something as silly as this secret, how can we trust you to keep personal, stuff secret? Not that it's dodgy, I'm just saying, like, how can we trust you to be a man of your word if you can't keep something as silly as this secret? That's how I think of it. From Egypt, the mysteries passed with little change. From Asia Minor, Greece, and Rome, the names of local gods be substituted for those of Osiris and Isis. The Grecian or Elysian mysteries, established in 1800 BC, represented Demeter and Persephone and depicted the death of Dionysus with stately ritual, which led the neophyte from the death into life and immortality. They taught the unity of God, the immutable necessity of morality, and a life after death, investing initiates with signs and passwords by which they could know each other in the dark as well as the light. The Mithraic or Persian mysteries celebrated the eclipse of the sun god using the signs of the zodiac, the procession of the seasons, the death of nature, and the birth of spring. The Adonic or Syrian cults were similar, Adonis being killed but revived to the point of life through death by Calabri mysteries on the island of Samothrace. Attis and the sun was killed by his brothers, the seasons, and the vernal equinox was restored to life. So also the Druids, so far north as England, taught of one god, the tragedy of the winter and the summer, and conducted to the initiates through the valley of death to life everlasting.
Welcome to Haunting History, the podcast that reaches back into the past for the events that shocked us. Tales of true crime, mystery, and the macabre. And when we're lucky, those stories where the past and the paranormal meet. Because who doesn't love a good ghost story, right? I'm your host, Kat, and joining me every week will be one of my co-hosts. Either Haley, my partner in every idea I have, or Tress, my lovely sidekick in all things paranormal. Join us this season as we discuss and share true accounts from all over Southern California and beyond, from haunted locations to newsworthy incidents and crimes that stunned us. We will delve deep and find the people behind the headlines. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Haunting History Podcast, and rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. Also, visit our website at hauntinghistorypodcast.com. Until next time, remember, the living are far scarier than any ghost.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
Hey, that the mailing list thing, if you sign into the mailing, so I'm busy. I've busied myself designing a set of tarot cards. And if you sign into the mailing list, you can get a sneak peek. It's basically like 100% real time work in progress of all the cards. I have them all done. I have a version of all of them done. I'm just going through and redesigning some of the major arcana cards because I felt like whatever. So I'm redesigning some of the major arcana cards, but if you're interested in it, check it out, man. It's pretty cool. It's been like something that I've been working on. I've been thinking about for, I don't know, like decades. Something I've been working on for, I don't know, like 6 months or so. Anyhow. All right, back to it. Shortly before the Christian era, when faith was failing and the world seemed reeling in its ruin, there was a great revival of the mystery religions. Imperial edict was powerless to stay it, much less stop it from Egypt from the Far East. They came rushing in like tide. ISIS and the myriad names vying with Mistra, the patron saint of the soldier, from the homage of the multitude. If we ask the secret reason for this influx of mysticism, no single answer can be given to the question. What influence the reigning mystery cults had upon the new uprising Christianity is also hard to know, and the issue is still in debate. That they had influenced the early church is evident from the writings of the fathers, but some go so far as saying the mysteries died at last, only to live again in the ritual of the church. St. Paul, in his missionary journeys, came in contact with the mysteries and even makes use of some of their technical terms in his epistles. But he condemned to take them to the ground, that what they sought was to teach in drama can be known only as spiritual experience. A sound insight through surely drama may assist to that experience. These public worship may also come under ban. So I don't want to get too far or crazy into this, but We see this every day. Like the new shitty Disney Star Wars movie just came out, and people are like, it's awesome, it's great. This is our new myth. This is our new myth. And you hear people talk about comic book, and they're like, comic books are our new myth. Comic books are our new myth. And at some point in time, the cynic has to say, if comic books are our new myth, then they matter. If comic books are our new myth, or if these movies are our new myth, then they matter. That means that canon matters. I don't know. I don't want to start railing all about this new Star Wars, this bullshit. Or like what the state of the comic book industry is, or even wrestling to that matter. Those are the three, by the way, strictly American born arts. Well, maybe not. There's some fluctuation in there. Rock and roll. Yes. Comic books. Yes. Wrestling. Yes. Yeah, so I don't know. But at some point in time, people throw this, this is myth, so it matters. All right. And then they go, well, this is new myth. But it doesn't matter. It's a giant soap opera. We could just rape it. We could pillage it for dollars and cents, I guess. I don't know. All right. I'm just going to move on. I just had a moment. Back to the book. This is not the book ranting. This is me rant. That was me ranting. Towards the end of their power, the mysteries fell into the mire and became corrupt, as all things human are apt to do, even the church itself being no exception. But that at their heights the best, they are not only lofty and noble, but elevating and refining. They can be, no doubt, that they served a high purpose is equally clear. No one has read the Metamorphosis of Apuleius, the initiation of Lucius into the mysteries of Isis, can doubt that the effect of the votary was profound and purifying. He tells us that the ceremony of initiation is, as it were, to suffer death, and that he stood in the presence of the gods. I stood near and worshipped, and hence ye profane, and all who are polluted by sin was the motto of the mysteries. And Cicero testifies that a man learned in the house of the hidden place made him want to live nobly and gave him happy hopes for the hour of his death. Indeed, the mysteries, as Plato said, were established by men of great genius. In the early ages, he strove to teach purity and hatred for the cruelty of the race, to refine its manners and its morals, and restrain its society by stronger bonds than those which human laws impose. No mystery any longer attaches to what they taught, but only as to the particular rites and dramas, the symbols used in their teachings. They taught faith in the unity of the spirituality of God, the sovereign authority of the moral law, heroic purity of the soul, and austere discipline of the character, and the hopes of a life beyond the tomb. Thus, in ages of darkness, of complexity, of conflicting peoples, tongues, and faiths, these great orders toiled in behalf of friendship, bringing men together under a banner of faith and training them for a nobler moral life, tender and tolerant of all faiths, except for mine. They formed an all-embracing moral and spiritual fellowship which rose above barriers of nation, race, and creed, satisfying the craving of men for unity, while evoking in them a sense of that eternal mysticism out of which all religions were born. Their ceremonies, so far as we know them, were stately dramas of moral life and the faith of soul, mysteries and secrecy added impressiveness, and fable and enigma disguised in imposing spectacle of the laws of justice and piety in the hope of immortality. Masonry stands in this tradition, and if we may not say that it is historically related to the great ancient orders, it is their spiritual descendant, and renders much of the same ministry to our age which the mysteries rendered to the olden world. It is indeed the same stream of sweetness and light flowing in our day, like the fabled river which gathers the waters of 100 rills along the hillside of Arcadia, in Arcadia Ego. Sank lost to sight in a chasm in the earth, only to reappear in the fountain of Arthusia. This is at least true. The greater ancient mysteries were prophetic of Masonry, whose drama is an epitome of the universal initiation, and whose simple symbols are depositories of the noblest wisdom of mankind. As such, it brings men together at the altar of prayer. It keeps alive the truths which makes us men, seeking by every resource of art to make tangible the power of love, the worth of beauty, and the reality of the idea. The value of man does not consist in the truth which he possesses or means to possess, but in the sincere pain which he hath taken to find out, for his powers do not augment by possessing truth, but by investigating it, wherein consists his only perfectibility. Possession lulls the energy of man and makes him idle and proud. If God held enclosed in his right hand absolute truth, and in his left hand only the inward lively impulse towards truth, and if he had said to me, choose, even at the risk of exposing mankind to continual erring, I most humbly would have seized his left hand and say, Father, give me the absolute truth. Belongs to thee alone. G.E. Elsling. Nathan the Wise.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.